Hey beautiful souls, it's late here. I've been busy editing what was the most powerful conversation this morning. Together I had a meeting with the women who are creating our panel for International Women's Day. And the theme of that panel is about reclaiming ourselves. Take a look at what we shared, cut down into bite-sized pieces. But you'll get the gist of why you should be at our event next weekend.
Brings in me is like what we reclaiming ourselves from and to, and actually like looking at that contextually. I mean, Laura, you were talking about, mothers and work and the context that people go back to and come from, but I mean, just historically we're in post-colonial capitalist Western contemporary society where we've lost so much of our kind of, the connection that we would be living in. So I'd say, I mean, there's the garden, the paradisical garden, that it would be amazing to reclaim ourselves to, the original self, of that is born with all of our biological expectations met, the creature self, the animal that has, can be secure in the world to explore and express and have an identity and individuate and all of those things, and with the context that we're born into, a lot of us are really, really far away from that, and we're bound by attachment trauma and in inherited wounds and oppressions of our kind of affectations of our personality, shame, like so many things that make us bring distance to the original self, I guess, is what it brings to mind when I think about reclaiming ourselves. So yeah, with those conditions in mind, because it may not necessarily feel safe. It may be a lot of work. It may be that we have to create containers in which to do that, and in which people can be a bit crazy or a bit angry or a bit sexual or a bit erotic or a bit whatever it is that feels like that true identity to themselves. But for me, it's about getting in touch with that, having places to explore that. So it's like, aha, right, that is, when that all the binding of that world is taken away, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to feel in this present moment, and it looks like this. And to bring that in.
I can go next. So for me, female pleasure and eros are the revolution that the world is yearning for. And I believe, and I know in my lived experience, that an embodied woman in her pleasure, fierce boundaries, open heart, with a soft power presencing that comes from the back body, not that patriarchal thrusting forward in the world, creates harmony, restores right relations, natural law, LORE, not only in our own bodies, but the ripple effect is exponential. It creates harmony within our family systems and constellations, within our community. And for me, the female eroticism has an extraordinary power to create the life that we desire. It magnetizes the life of our dreams. And when we cultivate pleasure in our bodies, it calms down all the cortisol that our adrenals have been pumping for years, you know, because I feel like we're an extraordinary generation of women. You know, we wanted it all, we got it all, and then guess what? We had to fucking do it all. So in my experience, most women hit perimenopause like hitting a brick wall. Their bodies are just flooded with cortisol, and you know, surprise, surprise, cortisol creates inflammation in the body, brain fog, weight gain, lack of libido, all the symptoms of menopause, right? And we're also taught to, you know, we live in a youth obsessed culture. We're taught to fear aging as a woman, particularly, that we are heading towards being an invisibilized, dried up old bag. And I feel like we are on the cusp of this new like tsunami of women, like sort of 45, 50 plus, who are saying, fuck that shit. We're not going to be parked off in the shadows. This can be the most juicy, creative, powerful time of our lives. And at 59, I'm certainly living my most energized, vibrant, sexual, alive life ever. And it is possible. And so, yeah, I'm here to bust a few myths about the female aging body and sexuality. I want to reframe the narrative around women aging as menopause is a powerful rite of passage. It's not an illness to be feared. We just need to have the awareness and new tools to navigate what I call the menopausal minefield that is completely confusing, and just come back to our bodies, come back to our body of pleasure. Our bodies and our body wisdom know what to do. And when our bodies are in pleasure, our nervous system is relaxed, our heart is open, our pussy is open, and we can receive the juice of life.
Less of the doing, more of the being. And this, I mean, the word for me is always intentionality. You know, how do I want to be in the world? I've spent, like many of us, in the masculine energy of doing, and being very good at knowing what to do and to do it. But what's the energy behind it? What's the thread? What's the intention behind how do I want to feel, not what do I want to do? And when I started really working on my way to that was learning around creating conscious contracts and really deepening into our values. And there are a set of beliefs, and, you know, identifying what's mine and what isn't, you know, what I have taken on through conditioning and socialization and origin family and ancestral as well. And so that's an ongoing journey. But as I get clearer about what those core values are to me, I get to really understand how I want to show up in the world. And then the opportunities arise. And then that supports my discernment of whether it's the right relationship, the right work, the right client. It supports me creating healthy boundaries and being able to really vocalize them with clarity. And so that's been my way to reclaiming how I show up in the world and being able to hold women in their businesses. And they're very often women who are doing trauma-informed work. They're the holders of other people. How do I hold them to be able to step into that space of exploration, discovery, I guess remembering what is really the core of their belief and value structure, so that can really set a foundation, a rootedness, and hold them in all of their relationships, whether they're personal or professional, and then weaving them into documents that reflect working relationships. You know, I want to make contracts human and recognize, acknowledge, and honor that life, working or personal, is not linear. So again, not focusing on what we're going to do, but how are we going to do it? How are we going to show up in relationships? How are we going to have uncomfortable conversations? You know, what's the foundation of our relationship that will hold us through rupture and repair? How do we return to harmony in our relationships? So that's me.
Thanks, honey. So B was the epic woman who took me on the journey with Sacred Sister to create our sacred agreement, and actually has led me to kind of do more work in that field as well. So yeah, it's such powerful kind of, I don't even want to call it work, because it like work kind of again is about the doing, right? But like the way you show up in your being kind of really is part of that, you know, it's part of really leading by example of who we are as people. And I see that in all of us.
So I hear a theme, which is we're moving out of the doing and coming into the being, you know, and that's how I've reclaimed myself and my work, and how I hold myself and others is hold on a second.
Thank you, my love. So what does it mean to me? Because I keep forgetting that I'm actually on this panel with you, not actually having to hold it, which is a bit of a different kind of spin. For me, about reclaiming myself has been and is still an ongoing journey through menopause, and having had a hysterectomy when I was 40, I physically went through that shift in a very quick way, and I was a little bit blasé. I was like, oh, it's done now. Done that menopause thing. I'm on to the next thing. And then 44 kind of rolled round and walloped me kind of hard. And I was like, what's this? And it's taken me till I'm nearly 50 to recognize what's been going on. And actually, that menopause for me isn't just a physical journey. It's such a kind of awakening into so many aspects of who I am as a person, not who I am with all the labels, not who I am in a body that is kind of bigger than society would like it to be, or not having hair that looks normal. And I considered the other day, I was like, oh, maybe it's just time to go back to a spa job. And I laughed. I was like, can you imagine me now taking a picture of myself and sending it to a 5-star spa? They'd be like, no, you don't quite fit the mold. And that's what I grew up in. I grew up in having to fit the mold of my job role, and therefore how I showed up, having my makeup on, looking pristine, having my hair a certain way, you know, all of those things that were about how I was going to be presented in the world. I think my connection is now unstable. We all
You're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
You've all frozen, so I don't know if that was me or you, but we're all back. Okay, great. So yeah, so for me it's kind of like, you know, when I stepped into that place, my kids are now like 14 and nearly 20. I don't quite know how that happened. They've grown up really fast. And so I'm like, okay, they don't need me in the same way. I don't work in the same way that I used to. My life is kind of very different. And so I really feel like I'm in that process of reclaiming myself and figuring out who the hell I even am. Like, you know, I've been walking with my 7-year-old for the last week, realizing that, you know, all of these parts of me have been left behind along the way. And so actually, by really being prepared to look at them, I'm also reclaiming those inner child parts of myself that are like, wow, what happened back then? That kind of, I'm pleased to say I've grown up. The last time I did this work, I was 5. So I've got to 7 now. And actually, you know, that's important work for me, like going back and really being prepared to look at what are those things that happened in those times that I'm still carrying, that I'm still believing, you know. A quick example of that is that my and this is, I think, is what's affecting kind of a lot of what I do. My dad's a truck driver. My mum and dad are still together. My dad's still in my life. That we haven't had a horrible, you know, breakup or big, you know, explosion. But my dad's never hugged me. He's never been there for a birthday. He's hardly ever been around for Christmas because he was always at work. And, you know, so his provider was to make sure that we had a roof over our heads and clothes on our backs and food in our bellies, which is amazing. But actually, I've spent my whole life trying to please my dad in some way. And now that's overlaid on my marriage. I now try and spend my whole life trying to make sure that I can be everything for him. He doesn't need that. He needs me to just be me. He just needs me to stand in my power and in my strength and kind of just be me and shine my own light my way. And he'll still be there. But I don't trust that he'll still be there because my dad just came and went. So in explaining that, and kind of that's part of that reclaiming of myself, is like, how can I actually reclaim those parts of me? I found a picture of myself at my 7th birthday party the other day, and I was like, wow, I look completely lost. Like I just didn't even fit in to a room of my friends at 7, you know? So really reclaiming those old parts of me so that I can, you know, figure out who I am now at nearly 50. So it feels good, but it's a journey, and it's a journey that I'm on, and not to kind of deny the deep emotional kind of reality that comes with that. So it's been quite a tough week as well. So yeah, that's what reclaiming ourselves kind of has meant for me.
It's really beautiful to hear voices like this. You know, this is how it's going to work, because there's a weaving already, and like that's one of my specialities as a dot connector. So you know, and I think one of the things that comes out of this is this new generation of, you know, 45 to 65 women, whatever, you know, age women, is that there is fundamentally a really big part of our lives that has been sacrificed to what? To a system that has not served us, that's made us lose ourselves on such an existential level. And it's also proof of how strong we are right now to turn those tables where our mothers couldn't do that, and say, no, there's still life in me. There's still life in me right now. And I am really fiercely fighting for that. You know, I've also had, this February has been like existential, like, you know, you thought you've done the work after 20 years or whatever it is. It's like, oh, sorry, there's something just come up. Let me show you. So my existential thing this February was really from the moment I was born, that jealousy of my sister, who's only 13 months older than me. I could feel the fact that she hated me in the moment that I was born, from that second sister coming in, taking the energy. And like, boom, that dropping in, that existential, no, I don't want you to be here, was what was being felt. And obviously, like you were saying, Laura, that ripples through everything, and that impacts, like Blanca, what you're saying about these contracts. Like, who are these people that I've had these contracts with for these profound lessons to be learned? And then, you know, Rosie, what you're saying about this weaving in of like, and where is that heritage? Like, where is that heritage, given that we're born into these places that have, like, not through any fault of anyone, created these wounds within ourselves where we've had to separate ourselves? And then how, you know, like with Sally, you're saying, like, how do we then like stand really strong still and say, no, hold on a minute, I'm actually going to reclaim it all, watch me do it. You know. And that's what this is, the voice that's coming through in this conversation. It's not just like, how do we reclaim ourselves and share our stories, but it's like, no, we are testimony. We're sitting here on this panel saying, no, we're actually doing it. We're actually doing it. And for anybody who's suffering, who's following in the footsteps, it's like, yeah, it's really hard. And this sacrifice of having to reclaim your life, like at 50, you know, I'm 49, so I'm like coming into my whole Chiron return thing. It's like, whoa, what was that life about? And reading that as a sacred script to say, yeah, we're doing this and we're reclaiming it all of it. the juiciness, the heritage, the sacred contracts, the children that we were never got to live. We are reclaiming it all. And that is why we're here. And so I will bring that in. I will bring that in for us and to connect that into the panel.